Hello. Today's book is nonfiction. It is by Terry Mort, and it is called Cheyenne Summer, The Battle for Beecher Island, a History. I picked this up at the library. I was just kind of looking for something to read, and it was on a table of books about indigenous people, Indians. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. I thought it was quite interesting. I learned a lot of stuff about the Indians, and it's set all in the Midwest, the Great Plains specifically, and the area that involves Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, and Wyoming, a little bit of Dakota territory around all that area is where all this is going on. And it's about people, the settlers is set in basically the 1860s. It's about the white settlers all trying to move west, all the immigrants coming into the country, and the aftermath of the gold rush in California, and all the people who want to go all the way across all this territory to get to California and get in on the gold and the riches and have a wonderful life in America. Only problem is there are still nomadic Indian tribes within that territory, and they're not happy about what is going on there, and they are quite warlike, as a matter of fact. So he breaks down the antagonists. Starts out with the Cheyenne, talks about the Cheyenne and what they're all about, according to him. Now, the Cheyenne were not always out there. The Cheyenne were once more agricultural people who lived in the northern Great Lakes, but they were driven out by another tribe. All the tribes are fighting with each other before the white people came. People are very much into fighting. It's a big human thing to fight and try to get territory and drive the other people out. And, well, it's even going on today, isn't it? So out there, all the Cheyenne who were in this area, upper Great Lakes, as he called it, another tribe was... this is only a couple hundred years, not that long before all this is going on in the 1860s, because part of what helped to drive them out of the Great Lakes was that the French sold this other tribe arms, guns, and guns is quite an advantage. So anyway, the Cheyenne find themselves to be nomadic people in the Great Plains, and they are more hunters now. There's some gathering going on, I guess, but yeah, it's basically hunting, and there's a lot of bison when they first get there, buffalo, so they can kill buffalo and eat them. It talks about the weaponry that they had, their bows and arrows, and how skilled they became using these tools, and what the bows were made of. Some of them were made out of, I guess, horns of some type. They were glued, somehow adhered together, and they were very, very powerful. And he claims that, they were so powerful that it is possible to shoot one bison through and have it go through and hit another with an arrow. So that's pretty powerful. He talks about how the Cheyenne in this period were very much warriors. They took pride in being warriors. Of course, the males, and they were trained as warriors from very young. It was what they do. They were warriors, and they were very good at it. Also, this involves the horse. The horse were brought in by the Spanish, and according to him, some of the horse got loose and all up into the Great Plains there, where they could eat grass and live like that and be wild. And they became captured by the Indians. Of course, the horses were not in North America before the Europeans came. So they become horsemen, horse riders, and they are very good at that. So, and from young, they're trained to ride horses. This also is something you need if you're going to be hunting bison, because you can ride along with them basically and shoot them from the horse. And otherwise, if you're doing this on foot, you end up risking being completely trampled by the herd of bison once they're scared and start stampeding. So he talks about one particular warrior called Roman Nose, and he puts a couple of pictures, which I'll put up behind me here, of that are artist rendering from the Fort Wallace Museum that the author took of these paintings of what Roman Nose looked like. And he had a particular headdress, a warrior headdress that he wore when he went into battle, that had only one horn and a whole lot of eagle feathers down his back. It was a very big, dramatic thing. And it was not made of anything that involved the white men. No materials that came from the white men, any of the metal or any other things like that. The Cheyenne also get access to rifles, to guns. There's all this trading in arms going on by other white people. Everybody's out for a buck. Still like today, if you send arms around the world, they're going to end up being sold to somebody else and end up over here, over there, and it's just it's what people do, and their greed, and their just desire to make more money. So I think that's that's about it with what I have to say about them. Then it goes into the Army. It talks about the Army, and some interesting stuff about the Army. This is all right after the Civil War, so a lot of the Army soldiers, officers, including Sherman and actually Beecher himself, who was actually his aunt was Harriet Beecher Stowe, and the famous preacher Beecher, and so he was injured a couple times during the Civil War, but somehow, I don't know, he re-enlisted, and he's out west here. You see movies of the forts out west, where they're like out in the Great Plains, but they have this like fort, with wooden fence all around, the high wooden fence all around it. Well, that's not really possible unless you drag all that wood in, because there's no trees in the Great Plains. So basically, the forts were like sod huts. There's a picture of some of them hanging around this Fort Wallace, which, part of Fort Wallace, which is out in the middle of the plains there, and it's just a shack with a canvas top. He talks about the Congress and the money that Congress is willing, and in the Civil War, like 700,000 people were killed, and then many others died with all this and that. Wounds and injuries couldn't be healed. Infections, all that stuff, which still goes on in this part of the story in the 1860s here. So so Congress is trying to save money because they've spent all this money during the war, and there are also reconstructions going on. So some troops are down in the South, working with trying to do the reconstruction until that was all derailed, I guess, soon after. But we don't go into that part of the story. We're really out about it in the Great Plains here and what's going on there. So in the movies, you see so much cavalry action. Yeah, they're all coming on horses, and but he talks about the economics of the horse for the army, and how hard it was, how expensive it was to begin with to have cavalry soldiers. One, it takes a long time to train them, like 3 months to teach them how to ride. And I guess at one point he says that it takes like really 3 years for them to be really fit cavalrymen. Still, they're not particularly able to shoot from the horse riding and things like that you see so much in movies. So it was really an issue about whether they were going to send out west infantry or cavalry, and so there was a lot of infantry, but infantry was not that useful in chasing around the Indians, who would come in and raid here and there, this little settlements, angering the people who were trying to settle out there, outraging them, with these basically terrorist attacks, and then they'd have to go out and chase them around the army. And infantry was not so good with that because the Indians were on horse, and if you send the infantry out there, they have to walk or be taken in wagons, I guess, to hunt around for the Indians, and that's not really all that practical. So there's a good deal about more about the economics of the horse. These army horses would eat oats as well, as the grasses and so forth. So they had to have, I guess the Indian horses all just grazed somewhere. They moved somewhere else where there was grass, so they could graze, and move somewhere else when that grass was depleted or whatever. More difficult in the summer where everything gets all dried up. So that was another part of the economics of the horse. They had to have like 4 pounds of oats each day per horse, and all that had to be gotten out there to the where the cavalry was out there in the Great Plains, which is a logistical problem of dragging all that stuff out there, and then it's soon consumed, and then you need more, as well as water. There was not that much water, especially in the summer. All the rivers and so forth would just dry up. There would be some water sometimes, and sometimes not, and the horses also needed a lot of water. So these were really practical issues that made the cavalry quite expensive, and not something that the Congress was quite willing to support. He also talks about the difference between the Easterners and the people out there. The Easterners, were a lot of them were more soft on the Indians because they weren't dealing with them directly anymore, or had not within any recent memory, but the people who were trying to go out there and settle out there were being raided, so on and so forth. The railroad that was going through there was having problems, and so you know, the Eastern. He talks about James Fenimore Cooper and his novels, Last Mohicans, and how you know, they romanticize the Indians in a way that is just not realistic. And that, you know, quite an Eastern thing, because Fenimore Cooper did not really know anything about the Indians. He just sort of made up these novels. So so you know, really, there's a difference between the Easterners' feelings about the Indians, who you know, wanted to be, they were much more soft on them in certain ways than the people dealing with them directly there, which is, you know, something else that's, you know, also transferable to today and things that are going on today. Oh, the civilians, he talks about, there's a section that talks about the civilians. Many people, you know, were, as I said, out there trying to get the gold, and how they got out there was, you know, this or that. Ultimately, there were stagecoach lines that brought people out, and eventually the railroad, which, you know, was completed, I don't know, in 1868 or something like that. So, and he talks about the building of the railroad and how that was kind of a duplicitous private enterprise operation where they set up a corporation to build the railroads, and the Congress gave them so much per mile, you know, so many thousands of dollars per mile completed of the railroad, and someone would go out and inspect this. So the railroad companies, the Union Pacific and the whatever the other one was, were you know, were financed by people investing in it and all that, and they were concerned about when are they ever get back the money they're investing in this you know, enormous operation. And they you know, they went by people riding the railroads and freight riding railroads. It was just, you know, they couldn't really foresee how that was going to bring back profit from investment for a very long time. So the railroad companies set up these dummy corporations, construction companies that they really owned, but it was kind of secret that they owned it. It was you know, off to the side, you know, sort of gray thing going on. So they owned the construction companies too, and so they would pay the construction companies, and therefore, you know, maximize their profit in that way. So that was all kind of interesting too. And the type of people who were in the army, out there, there were buffalo soldiers, the former slaves, black people. There were lots of immigrants in the recruited into the army that was out there as well. You know, from Irish and other people who were landing in America, you know, in this time of all this great immigration, because you know, America was this land of opportunity everybody was hearing about, and besides, home was not what it used to be, and hard for everybody, and you know, that whole story. So most of the book is dealing with that. I think it was what the last 100 pages talk about the fight at Beecher Island. Beecher Island was, you know, really just a little island. A troop of soldiers left Fort Wallace going after some Indians, and eventually the Indians found them, because the Indians were better at finding them than they were at finding the Indians. And they ended up being attacked by the Indians, and they set up in this sort of island in the middle of a river, or basically the dry rivers. But anyway, it was a higher area that gave them a little bit of elevation, so they could see what's going on a little bit better. So they took that area, and it was ultimately called Beecher Island because of the guy Beecher, who ended up actually dying there after this battle that went on for several days, because the soldiers were kind of dug in. They dug trenches and stayed low. Trench warfare already. So they wanted to stay down low, so they could shoot from there, and they this went on for like 4 or 5 days, and meanwhile they have wounded. Their horses have been shot. The horses, it's hot. So the horses start, they're just trapped there. They don't want to try to move because the Indians are out there. So the horses start rotting and smelling, as well as whoever was killed, the same deal. And you couldn't really bury them because you couldn't really move around that much and do all these kind of things, as well as the wounded. There was the head Forsyth was the commander of this force, and he was wounded the first day in battle. He was shot in the leg and shot twice in the leg, and his leg was he had a bullet that was lodged in his leg, and he could see where it was lodged, and it was quite near an artery, and he was afraid of trying to get it out because it was quite near an artery. So ultimately, he wanted one of the others to dig the bullet out for him, and they were frightened because they would might hit the artery and kill him. So he got a razor from someone and did it himself. He went on to survive after this and told a tale about it, as well as one of the Buffalo soldiers, or black soldiers, name of Walker, who when he was 86 wrote a chronicle of what went on. He came in later. He was part of the rescue party that came in when finally, because they had scouts as well. They had in the army, and along with this mission, they had scouts who other white people who had more experience with the territory, knew how to go around, knew some of the English, some of the Indian languages, or could speak in sign language, which is how some of the tribes communicated with each other in sort of a universal sign language, since they couldn't really understand each other either because they spoke different languages. Roman Nose, the Cheyenne legendary warrior, had this. The thing he would do was when there were lines of soldiers, infantry, whatever, lined up, ready to, and the Indians were up nearby, and Roman Nose would go out first. And he felt that this headdress that he had would make it impossible for the bullets to hit him. So he would just ride sideways across, and really it was a factor that it took him a long time to load the type of weapons they had in the beginning when he was first doing this. So they couldn't get that many shots off. And he was moving moving like this, which made him a difficult target because they weren't that good at shots. These people, they were kind of poorly trained because they didn't spend the money to train them and didn't take the time. So that was the deal with Roman nose. But when he came to Beecher Island, finally, he was concerned that nothing about the white people should touch his hat, his headdress, or anything else, or it would curse his ability to be impervious to the gunfire. But the story went that someone, a woman from another tribe or whatever, didn't know that and used a fork, a metal fork, which was, a white person's implement to get some bread out of a pan or something, and he ended up eating that and then found out about it. And so he knew that that day he was going to die, and he did. But, there are other factors that contributed to that, because the weaponry kept increasing in its ferocity and the ability to repeat. There was breech-loading rifles that were easier to put bullets in, and bam, 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 shoot more shots per minute than the old muskets or whatever they were using before. That it was a more complicated process of loading and slower. So, the last part of the story is talking about this battle and what went on, and, the survivors who lasted. And, it was all quite an interesting book. And, Beecher Island is no longer there, because once the spring came and washed everything away, it changed the whole landscape, and it was, washed downstream or whatever, disintegrated. And so that's the story of, as far as I can tell, as far as I have to say, of Terry Mort, Cheyenne Summer, which I thought was a really kind of interesting book, really because of all the details about the weaponry and as I said, Congress and the money going into the fight, and the railroad, and all these things, and the horses, and how the cost of having the horses. And it was a really interesting read, and I enjoyed it. It's not that long, what 270 pages or something. Yeah, a lot of notes in the end. So I hope to see you next time, and thank you for watching.